What am I to do?
Welcome to RazorBranding Podcast with Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Hi, it's Jackie Russo, and thanks for joining me today on the RazorBranding Podcast. I'm so excited to have Stephen and Peter here. They made a huge presentation to Downtown Lafayette for the new wayfinding project that they just finished. And my team was there, and they were like, this wayfinding signage thing is really cool. Let's talk about it. So welcome to the show, Stephen and Peter.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Now, we've had the opportunity to do three-person before, and it's always interesting because I want to ask both of you the same questions. So y'all will have to figure out who's going to answer which thing, and it'll be like a round robin. But because I've got our standard questions here ready to roll, I want to start with the wayfinding signage. How did that come about? What was the catalyst? Tell me a little bit about that process. Or is it just Anita called and said, y'all have to do this?
Actually, might have started partially because of Create, specifically Kate Durio and I had talked about doing the wayfinding signage a while back. And I actually brought someone on just to help us do some research into wayfinding. And we did a proposal and it ended up getting funded. And before you know it, we're bringing on Peter and Allison to help us do the graphics while we do more of the urban design side of it. And that's how it happened. Now, Anita helped push it forward too. At some point she jumped on, and I remember her and I being in Greenville, South Carolina, and we were like kind of nerding out with their wayfinding system too.
So Peter, share a little bit about how when y'all entered, you and Allison, where your process was, and you're like, oh, sure, we've done 1 million of these. We're ready to roll.
Right. No, haven't done a million wayfinding projects. I mean, we've done a couple of map projects in there. We had worked with Stephen on a couple of other projects, and we've known Stephen for a while now. And so when he asked us to do it, I felt like we kind of looked at each other and I said, I think we could do this together. I think our eyes and vision will be in the same place. And then at the same time, we had just been doing a lot of work and still do a lot of work with Codafill. So because this wayfinding project, one of the main things is it had to be bilingual. We already, even though Alice and I do not speak French, we were already working on a project where we knew, at least from a design point of view, how to organize that information to make it bilingual.
Right. So you mentioned Greenville, South Carolina. That's the one Acadiana trip to other communities, right?
Yes, that's it.
So did y'all look at other communities' wayfinding signages for inspiration?
We looked at a lot. I mean, I wouldn't even say a dozen, like more than a dozen, right? And all over the world, not just in the United States. And some of the best examples we were finding were in Europe, but also in Australia. And some of the Basel was one that I remember us really zooming in on. Walk NYC was one, Legible London, as well as probably the one of the better ones that we found was in Adelaide in Australia.
Now, those are also pretty big communities. Is there an equivalent for a town as small as Lafayette? Did you find some in smaller markets too?
I mean, they exist. I don't know if they were our precedent as much as some of the bigger cities, but I mean, I guess we're aspiring to be like the bigger cities. But at the same time, Peter and Allison did a really great job of testing the totem concepts whenever we were developing them, testing them in the Lafayette environment, even just photoshopping them on top of like Jefferson Street or in Girard Park, and just seeing does it look like it goes with the environment.
So, Peter, you mentioned the need for translations. Obviously, this Acadiana community is based, or its heritage is in French. And so when y'all looked at doing the French to English translations and not being French speakers yourselves, did you use Google Translate? Did you turn to local French people? Did you go with Cajun French or authentic real French? What was the process?
Right. I don't think I would ever suggest using the Google Translate. We've done a lot of bilingual projects with even the education department at UL for French and Spanish, and never used Google Translate. it's for sure wrong, especially when you have something, I would say, and maybe Stephen would agree, kind of as nuanced as Louisiana French, which is not exactly the same. And I know Stephen could elaborate more on that, but we relied heavily on.
I'm the French speaker in the group.
Yeah, exactly. But we relied heavily on Codafil, of course, and their input, Stephen's input, and other, you're right, French speakers.
So Jackie,
French speakers.
when we were looking at it for the assets, the first thing was, is it a term that's already established? So a lot of them were already established and written on the buildings themselves. So the parish courthouse, it says Maison de Cour, like written on it, right? Even the city court, it says Maison de Cour Municipale. So a lot of these things were already established. Now, there were some that even in English, we use the French term, right? Like Parc Sans Souci or Parc International. But then there's some, we were finding that there were some English ones that just stay in English and French. So it goes both ways, like Cajun Dome. So, then we started looking at what were other things that were established in other ways, like Girard Park. When you have Festival Acadien, they always say Parc Girard. So, that was the second sort of iteration. Then we started really looking at the Louisiana French Dictionary, which was like 10 years in the making. So this was based off of lots of interviews and understanding what was used locally. And in the end, Codafil put together a committee to kind of help even flush all that out. And then I guess finally, if they really didn't have a word in Louisiana French, we went for the international French term, which was actually not too often, but sometimes we did,
But I think that's really great because you're honoring the heritage of the people who founded this community and welcoming back the international travelers who speak a version of French from
Correct.
wherever they might be.
Correct. And we also made sure that most of these terms are going to be understood by people from, whether they're from Canada, the Caribbean, Africa, or Europe. I mean, we made sure that these were terms. Now, some of them, they might be, oh, well, that's kind of cute, or, well, that's a different way of saying it. But yeah, I mean, like the word for trash can, we use kind of an old school term, and or like we'll say like protect the bayou, right? So it's not something you would see in France or Belgium.
Not a lot of bayous there?
No.
Or coolies?
Yeah. They
so
might have coolies, but
no, for sure. What's the timeline to get these produced and installed and ready for use?
So we actually have already went out for bid, and we selected the lowest bidder, and they have been given the go. They have about 30 days from today to do a mock-up. It's actually going to be right in front of your office in Parc Sans Souci. And that after we approve that mock-up, they'll go ahead and do the other 20 or 21 or whatever. I think we had 22 total at some point. And they'll go ahead and start putting that within 45 days after we approve.
Good. So this will filter throughout downtown Lafayette and greater Lafayette. Mm-hmm. Do we extend beyond the city into the parish?
So we kind of do, I guess, but not with the walking and the totems. The walking and totems are real more in the urban core of Lafayette. So downtown and the neighborhoods that surround it. We are working with the administration as well as with the council, some council and parish council members to for them to adopt the, I guess it's the policy book that Peter and Allison really worked hard on creating, like a policy book on the exact graphics and where to put things and, very graphic designer type stuff.
Brand standards and guidelines is what we call it.
Correct. Exactly. So the guideline book. And so we're working on trying to get that adopted officially through the councils, which would include the whole parish.
That's awesome. I would love to see, the entire parish embrace it, because it's great when we can have that connectivity from city to city throughout the parish. So that's awesome, because every one of our cities has an urban core that's very walkable. So it would be nice to see that carried through. in a perfect world, there's no limitations on budget, time, or other responsibilities. Where would you take this project next?
Peter, we've kind of talked about it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways, of course, you always want to make it bigger and keep going. But I always feel like with an unlimited budget, I would want to keep going inward, keep going back, and keep double checking and keep refining to make sure that it could be the best it could be.
Jackie, there's so much scope creep on this project.
That's shocking, Stephen. That never happens.
And we had talked about we'd love to do the bus systems more. Peter came up with a great new bus sign, and it would be great to be able to put underneath that sign, like, what are the destinations on this line, where people don't realize, I can get on this bus and I can go to Monkus Park, or I can get on this bus and go to the Cajun Dome, and being able to do that would be fun. I think also we were only able in our time to look at 5 different parks. I think we have a total of like 20 parks in the parish. So looking at all the parks would be another thing that would be something we would want to see. And
I would say also, if budget wasn't obviously a constraint, you would I think even bring in more technology aspects to the project, which would probably be designing apps or specific websites that could also help you kind of along this way to find what you need to kind of merge the older kind of like precedent wayfinding with more modern technology that people are used to using to navigate.
Right. That'd be awesome. I was in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and in Santa Monica, right near their 3rd Street Promenade, they have an ambassador, a cultural ambassador there to greet visitors, guests, tourists, give them information, directions to parking, restrooms, remind them about paying to park, whatever it might be. I would love to see that. Wouldn't that be awesome if we had bilingual ambassadors stationed throughout downtown?
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Right? I mean, and not just around festival time, but all the time, to be able to help guide anyone who's coming here. Now that LCVC office is down here, I mean, what a nice tie-in that could be.
I know. I've always felt that the Welcome Center or the Information Center should be downtown. Like, that should be where most people come first, and then kind of spread out from there. But
right.
But yeah, just having your right, a greeter, a liaison would be interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I love this project, and it made me start thinking about how much downtown is expanding and growing, and what a great job Anita's done. I think I talk about that just about every chance I get. Stephen, I know you've had some pretty big projects going down here. Catch us up on what you've been doing, and then maybe what's coming next.
Your program's only 50 minutes. It's every day it's something different, but I guess the biggest accomplishment that we did was we built Vermilion Lofts, which is the first new construction mixed use project in downtown Lafayette. 4 stories, and we've filled it up, and 100%. The ground floor retail is almost full, and we have a lot of activity on the street. I mean, we've seen it. It's really activated this corner and made it come alive even beyond just the building. And so it's very encouraging. We actually moved our office into the bottom floor, so we get to really see it. And we have plans to build it again, to build one across the street that'll be 5 stories.
Directly across the street, so also on that same corner, or in one? Because I know there's a building right there now.
It'll be in one. It'll be going back towards your office, right? Going back towards Parc Sans-Souci. So it's going to take up over half of the block. So it'll really create the connection going back towards the park from Freetown.
That's awesome.
And that one we're going to do 5 stories, but it'll taper down with a small roof terrace, and the roof terrace for the tenants.
That's amazing. So, we've been talking about, we're only 1 story now, but because of our proximity to the parks and kind of being in the center of town and having a 5-story parking garage next door, I want to go to 5 stories. We'd be able to see over the Children's Museum into Park International, maybe somebody would let us do a walkway from 5th floor to 5th floor, and we could do a rooftop terrace. How awesome would that be?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm in.
Stephen can make that happen.
I can make it happen.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
Do you also have an unlimited budget?
No, sadly, only in hypothetical situations do I have unlimited budget, not in practical realities. My banker would say my budget is very limited. But how amazing that would be, right?
Yeah.
So
but one of the goals was to give people an example of what can be possible, but and how to do it. This project was about embracing the street. It's about mixing uses, urbanism, but at the same time, we even were able to put a rainwater garden on the interior of the block, right? So even having some green features in an urban context.
that's awesome.
But we're also setting the rents and allowing other developers to be able to make a project work based on, appraisers come in and they need comparables. And so we've created that comparable.
I think about how it seems quickly. I know you worked on it for a long time, but from when I first heard about it to you being at 100% capacity seemed to go kind of fast. So does that bode well, you think, for your next 5-story structure, the 2 20-story towers that they're talking about doing next to the federal courthouse? I mean, how much growth and development are we about to have downtown?
I guess we're going to find out, right? It's hard to predict. But after you start laying a foundation of comparable banks are willing to look at you more, and investors are willing to look at you more. And even in our office, we're having more and more property owners downtown coming to us and saying, hey, can we look at the possibility of doing something on our property? So,
right.
So we'll see. We got a bunch of things in the works, and you never know which one will ignite.
I love that. One of the things that I first heard about when I served on the board for downtown, which was a few years ago, was infill. It never occurred to me about the importance of infill, especially in an urban core. Stephen, that seems to be something that you're kind of practicing what you preach and really focusing on that. Can you talk a little bit about why infill is so important to a community?
Infill is, it's kind of like, it's hard to eat if you're missing teeth, it's harder to smile when you're missing teeth. So it's filling in the missing teeth of your urban core, and parking lots or empty lots, or to some extent, even vacant buildings are the missing teeth that you have to fill in, because what ends up happening is if someone's walking down the street and there's too big of a gap, they're not encouraged to continue walking. And so you don't have that activity, which brings commerce and what makes downtown fun, right? So that's the reason why infill is extremely, extremely important.
Peter, you and Allison and I have gotten to work on some projects together in the past. And one of the things that's always interested me was how diverse your sets of talents are and your interests are. So we worked together on videography projects. Y'all have made a line of toys. You're creating wayfinding signage. When we think about, building a brand, usually it's kind of a very narrow focus, and y'all sort of blown that up and gone wide with it. How does that keep you moving forward when you get to do so many different fun, creative projects?
Right. Well, we're in the same boat as you, where it's like, I feel like with clients, we're always like, you need to narrow, you need to focus. And then they're like, but you don't narrow and focus. And it's like, that's true. That's true. So to me, it's kind of like our logo. Like, I would never pitch a 5-color logo to anybody, but if I want it, I guess, but I know where it can go wrong. So it's like, to me, like, that's kind of an example. So I feel like that Allison and I, since we've started, her background is in film, and I have a degree in industrial design or product design. And we've just never put any limitations on that creativity. And we know a lot of people that have become hyper specialists, I guess, like and not necessarily in a bad way, but put themselves like in one box. I'm doing this one thing and I'm going for it and going for it. And I feel like we're always kind of incrementally moving every little thing up. I don't know. I don't know if it's like just like anxiety, like I want to keep working on different things, or I think we just love creativity in kind of any way, shape, or form. And we also love learning. So it's like, we're not afraid to jump in on a project and try to learn that. Now that probably comes from the industrial design background of having to quickly become an expert on something, and the documentary film background of like wanting to get to know something as well. So I think we're always looking to learn and then expand on that.
But don't you think that's, I'm sorry,
that's
Steve,
why we get along so well. I mean,
Yeah.
our practice is very similar in the fact that it is a cast a wide net. And I mean, we're not just, I mean, look, we do a wayfinding system, which is kind of urban design, but we also do a master plan for townhouses, or we'll do an infill lot, or we'll do historic preservation, like the new Welcome Center in Carencro, 200-year-old Acadian cottage, or the side of the parklets, the parklet on Jefferson. Yeah. So, one thing though I realize is being in a smaller market, you almost are forced to do that sort of thing, but also it kind of stretches your creativity, and we love it. I mean, as long as the projects are fitting inside of our mission, and they're improving people's lives through design, we get excited about it. So
yeah, I would agree with that.
It seems like for both of you, though, there's quite the connective thread, because what you're doing is taking your background, your skills, and breathing into existence all of these different opportunities to continue to create. And so whether it is a Welcome Center in Carencro or a 5-story mixed-use space in downtown Lafayette, you're still developing the next thing where people are going to spend their time and live and sleep at night, and you're making the world a better place.
That's our goal.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. And I would say that, I mean, maybe some people would disagree with me, but it's like, I have a feeling that if I gave Stephen a week to design a toy, that he would come up with a good toy, because he understands, general design principles. He's going to understand, of course, like color and balance and form and all of that, in the same way that he might not consider himself a graphic designer, but he knows when it looks good and when it doesn't. And I'm sure, Stephen, you could do it if you wanted to do it.
We just don't have time.
Right.
Which is why we needed your help on this project. Right. We figured your learning curve was less too than us. So
right. But I think that comes down to just most creatives can do a lot of things, but maybe not every technical aspect of it. But in a general way, I think that there's, if you hand somebody who is a painter and you hand them a camera, they probably would know how to compose a shot, but they might not know every technical aspect of that camera, or how to get the pictures printed properly and to be a photographer. But there's some general knowledge, in there that I think is shared.
Well, that's what Michael always says. Everybody's creative. They may not all be artists, but they're all creative in their own way. And so whether you're creating a new product or a new ad campaign or a new logo or a new strategy, it's still the creative process. It's still about challenging your mental muscle and getting that thing that's inside of you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Peter, you did not go to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, did you?
No, I did not.
I did not think so. No.
No.
Stephen, did you? Are you a local college? No, also out. So y'all grew up here, left, and came back. So you're both boomerangers.
That's it.
Excellent.
That's it.
So when you think about the experiences that you had in going out, conquering the world and then coming back home, what has surprised you the most about your return back to here?
Peter?
I guess I'll go first. I mean, so I went to school in Savannah, Georgia. Always makes like the top 10 list of walkable cities in the US. I didn't have a car for 4 years. And quickly learned that, and you come back here and you have to have a car. So
I don't know. Our wayfinding system might be showing you
Well,
otherwise.
and it's gotten better. I guess
It has gotten better.
When I came back 13 years ago, it was different. And then I think that I don't know. The way I've always felt about Lafayette is like Lafayette's still malleable, and I feel like a lot of other markets. And I had some professors in college. It's like they're not as much of that clay that you can mold. Somebody's already there and they've already done it, and you can go work for them, and you're going to add to their success. But to me, I've always had an interest in Lafayette. I've always described it as the place that I wish I would have discovered, but unfortunately, I grew up here, and I think that's just how I feel about it. Like I wish I would have just found this place so I wasn't in my hometown. But then another way, it's like there's a lot here. There's a lot of potential here, and it's just finding that. I don't know if that answered your question.
It answered it perfectly. Stephen, how about you? What's the biggest surprise upon coming home?
Actually, the more I traveled, the more I appreciated our culture and what made us unique, and realized that we have to use that. It's probably our best resource. We've got great natural resources, and we've been very lucky to have those. But at the same time, the thing that we haven't tapped into enough, and what makes us special, is our culture and our identity is just so unique. And the more I've traveled, the more I realize how great the people were here, and just how great of a place it is, right?
Right.
But I went to school not as far away as Peter. I was in New Orleans, and I also didn't have a car for 2 years. I do enjoy the walking and biking aspects of older cities, such as Savannah or New Orleans. But we were developed mostly after the vehicle, so we have to adapt to multimodal, which I think we are slowly, and I think people are starting to get it and learn it, and you're hearing it more and more from leadership. Even one Acadiana has been pushing the quality of life issues, which, obviously bikeability, walkability are probably the foundation of quality of life. So hopefully it is as moldable as Peter says it is, because it's going to be really great soon.
So just a flashback for a second to last year, which I don't think anybody expected or predicted would go the way it would. Obviously, there were, a lot of really sad occurrences through the pandemic. And then there were some bright spots. So tell me a little bit about some of the bright spots for y'all. How were you able to make use of this strangest year probably in our lifetime? Stephen, you're up first. You went first last time.
Okay, so we definitely, I hate to use the word pivot, but I guess we did sort of pivot in some ways. We were very lucky actually to have the wayfinding project, and we're able to focus on that while nobody was wanting to talk about building anything. We were a little more nervous on the real estate development side because Vermilion Lofts had just been delivered to us. And so there was like a scary 2 months of a complete shutdown where we're paying a very large note to a bank with nobody moving in. And obviously that even we overcame even COVID and filled the place up pretty quickly. But on the architecture side, there were, we just got out there and kept on pushing, and we had to adapt a lot to working from home, working remotely, which actually has helped us because one of our major employees, her visa ran out and she moved back home. But we've been able to keep her on as a consultant because we understood better the tools that we could use. And we had to get really creative, right? Because we're creatives and everything is about collaboration. So just a Zoom call is not enough. I took my stimulus check and bought a newer version of an iPad with an Apple Pencil and have switched almost completely away from the sketchbook into sketching in the iPad, which is really interesting. I mean, I still have to go back to get out of the iPad sometimes to get creative, but at the same time, it's a whole new set of tools that we jumped out there and decided let's use this as an opportunity to learn these tools. It was more out of necessity, but we embraced it and said some of these things we might actually keep doing.
Right. I just upgraded to the 12.9 inch also, and I'm loving it. Michael uses the iPad for drawing. Which app do you use? Is it Procreate or one of the others?
I use Morphosis's Trace a lot and also Procreate.
Yeah.
But Trace works really well for us because it's almost like you putting trace paper down and you can trace on top of things.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. And even redlining drawings I started doing a lot of that. So it's going less and less paper, and architecture is a very paper heavy industry, as you can imagine.
Yes, y'all kill some trees.
Yeah. Well, probably more when we build the building, but
Right.
Probably so, for sure.
Yeah.
Peter, how about you? What was a bright spot of last year?
I don't know if I'm going to have a good answer for this. Mainly our year, I don't know. In some ways, it felt the same, and I hate to say that. I know because it was so different for a lot of people. But we already work from home. We already have the kid, our child, here with us. It's like nothing really changed except kind of going back to what we talked about before. It's like we just stopped doing less like production work because we couldn't go do video work.
Right.
But that's not the only thing we were doing. So it turned into more graphic design stuff that we could do from home. So we had to pivot just in minor ways. But last year, it's like it sort of felt the same and sort of felt different. We just obviously missed the social aspect of getting out of the house. we make a choice to stay here most of the time, but then when you're forced to make that decision, it's like we really needed that other interaction.
Right. So how have you, and I'll start with Peter and then go to Stephen, how have you taken the lessons you learned from last year and the work that you did and the pivots that you made and changed something about what you want to do next? It may not even be an immediate change, but just looking down the line, where you're heading and how you want to better prepare yourself maybe if something like that happens again.
Right. I mean, I guess for me, Alice and I are always thinking a lot of the people that we work with are still in this market. And I know, Russo, y'all work with people all over the country. And, I feel like for us, that's kind of what we're always trying to think is like, is there any work that we could secure in other markets and just continue doing it from home or doing it from wherever, we want to do it, just doing remote work. That's kind of like been our big concern. But then I feel like all the work in Lafayette just keeps piling up. So I'm always worried that the work in Lafayette will dry up and then it doesn't. So I don't know. And I kind of as a side note, I know I told Stephen this before, but I do believe it. It's like, I really, really enjoy a lot of the work that Stephen is doing. His work downtown, some of his other developments. I don't know everything he can even talk about. Maybe he shared with me, but it's like
probably Trape.
Yeah, like Trape. It's like there's definitely
we can talk about that a little bit.
Oh, good, because I was going to ask you about it. So can we talk about it?
Yeah, I'll let Peter.
Okay, good.
You're right. Well, I've realized that sometimes when people ask me now, when they're kind of like, well, what do you like about Lafayette? Everybody's natural response is the food, the culture, and the people. And I agree with that. But now I think my reason might be Stephen because he's bringing to me, he's bringing all the stuff that I feel like other people are moving away for, or the stuff you go to another city and you're like, wouldn't it be great if we had this? And then I come home and Stephen's like, well, wow, we're doing something similar over here. And it's like, okay. Well, and you start to feel this less need of like, well, I love Lafayette for everything it is. I just wish it had these other little assets that these other cities have just been able to have and get. And so
Peter, what I hear you saying is this laundry list of things I have. I want to have the Santa Monica Third Street Promenade. I want to have the San Antonio River Walk. All of those things. If I just tell Stephen, he'll build them here and I don't have to leave again. Right.
But he's actually already thinking about this. I think, so he's ahead of you.
Okay. I'm all for it. I'm going to add Sandy Beach now to the list.
Well, that could happen. We'll be the coast by so many years.
And the biggest lazy river in the world. That's my list, Stephen. Those are my 4 things.
The biggest lazy river.
Yes.
Like the longest?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And it could just go in a circle. I'd be fine with that. Just a really nice, cool, windy circle. I mean, how awesome would that be?
We can go around the whole city. And people build interstate loops. We could build a
loop. It is a lazy river.
A lazy river loop. Yeah.
It kind of rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, nice alliteration.
Right. Right. No, Peter, I think that's a great answer. And it kind of opens up nicely for Stephen's response. Stephen, tell us.
About Trape?
Yes.
In particular. So I've been working with also an architect and real estate developer out of New Orleans, Marcel Wisnia, who does much larger projects than we've done. And I brought him to Lafayette in 2014 and brought him to a couple different places, but specifically the old Trape cannery on the Vermilion. And at one point we got a little distracted by it and tried to do the federal courthouse project and didn't get selected for it. But we pivoted back to looking at the river, and the opportunity came up to purchase the old warehouses, about 188,000 square feet under roof, which is about 4 acres under roof of historic warehouses. And we didn't even have to think very long to decide let's buy it, because we had already been back and forth to it for years. And so we started doing some schematic designs and master planning, and the site as a whole is actually 23 acres. It's about a 1/4 mile length of the Vermilion. So we're looking at Riverwalk possibilities. We're looking at potentially connecting to Beaver Park, and even rethinking Beaver Park for the city, and working with the city. And actually the mayor's office has been working with us a lot on the project, as well as Lafayette Economic Development Authority. Lita has been great from the very beginning, because this is not a project that me and Marcel can do by ourselves, right? It will take a community effort to make this project real. But at this point, I have no doubt that it will be real. And I have no doubt that the community is going to continue to help us as much as they have, between the mayor's office and Lita, and even Acadiana Planning Commission. So it's going to be fun. We're talking about our goals for this mixed use project would be able to have a hotel component, to have hundreds of dwelling units, mixture of apartments and condos. We're looking at brew pub. We're looking at an outfitter where you can actually launch kayaks into the river right there. Your basic riverfront development. We were looking for precedent of the wayfinding system. We've done a very similar thing with our approach of looking for precedent all across the world of waterfront or riverfront developments that are similar. The one that we found was probably the closest to what we have is actually just north of downtown San Antonio. There's a new development called Pearl District. It's in the old Pearl Brewery. And it's the same amount of acreage, similar amount of linear feet along the river, a mixture between new construction and historic buildings, and placemaking, all the fun things. But I definitely believe that Trape can completely change the way people in Lafayette perceive their own city, and even the way regionally how people perceive it, because I see it as a development that is regional. It's not just a development within the city, but it's a place where people are going to drive from Shreveport or from New Orleans or Houston just to come and spend a weekend and hang out on it. So yeah, we're really excited. It's going to be fun.
It'll be nice, people that land in the airport. As soon as they cross Evangeline, it's right there. It's a nice greeting. You know, hopefully you get that. Yeah, like, what is that place? You know, we booked the wrong hotel. You know?
That's amazing. How much could the potential I-49 work affect it, or do you just think that's so far in the future it's not even going to be an issue?
We've been working with DOTD's team, specifically the connector, the I-49 connector team,
right?
And they already had it on their radar as a historic site. So they've already kind of been respectful. There's been a few other things we pointed out to them that we're trying to save some live oaks, and there's some flood zone stuff. And so we're working with them. Acadiana Planning Commission's really done a lot of work to help us get there too. So
yeah, no, Monique and her team are awesome.
Yeah, Monique's been great. And you know, we actually right now are currently working on putting it on the National Registry. Good. And so it's been a really interesting process. The people we hired have done a really awesome job, and there's like 22 pages of just I wouldn't even say it's the history, it's just the chronology of the site. And it goes all the way back to the Neolithic era, because they found bones and teeth from a mastodon on the site at one point.
No way.
In 1971. And it was a big deal, like in the early 70s, about how they found this mastodon. So so it's even got prehistory. But,
that's amazing.
I mean, the Trapeze actually moved into that location in 1930, and you can imagine in 1930 you just had this major crash in 29, and the beginning of the Depression. The site had been flooded majorly in the flood of 1927. You had Huey Long was the governor, and Hoover was the president. And these guys opened up a giant cannery and were canning. Mostly it was the yams that made them very successful. And it really helped the whole economy in the whole region, because the farmers were shipping all of their sweet potatoes and their yams to the site, a lot of it on rail. And then they have a railroad spur that goes right in the middle, in between the buildings.
Wow. And
you know, things could get there by boat, things can get there by rail. Obviously, there's a highway next to it, but it's a great site. It's very interesting. It's fascinating. Even before the flood of 1927, it actually had some 4-story buildings along the river that was part of the Star Salt Company, and they were. I didn't even realize we had a salt dome in Lafayette Parish, but there's a place called Anse-la-Butte, which is actually not far from the Acadiana Park. And they were mining for the salt. They were shipping the brine down the river to the Trapeze site, and they were separating the brine into chlorine and salt and shipping it out on the railroad spur.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a huge part of Lafayette and Acadiana's history.
And even at that same time, it shared next door was Baldwin Lumber, which was actually owned by the Texas company, which is today Texaco. So it's been fascinating. Even whenever it was in Trapeze in World War II, they were major dehydration plant that they created just to dehydrate yams and ship them to the war effort. And so some really fascinating stories that are out there. We even found a photo of they used to host an annual pepper eating contest there. And one of the winners was actually former Miss Louisiana and about to become Ellie Mae in the Beverly Hillbillies. And so we have this great picture of her with these like 3 or 4 guys swooning around her, and she had just won the pepper eating contest, and you could see Randolph Trapeze shaking her hand. So
that's classic.
there might have to be a bar named Ellie Mae.
Absolutely.
Right.
She must be honored.
Right.
That's awesome. I have completely neglected our listeners, so I have to touch base on a couple of questions that have been asked. First of all, Connor Allo is thankful that we are speaking it into existence, that we will one day build a 5-story building right here on our site, because they're all looking forward to that rooftop lounge. Anita Begno says hi, I think, to all three of us. And Hannah Crader asks, she says, I'm interested in the wayfinding printing process. Will it be done locally?
It is. Yep.
Yes.
The people who won the bid is 3D International Signs, and I've actually worked with them on some signage on some of the buildings that we've done. Actually, they built the sign. They built my sign for SO Studio, so they were really good at even taking the logo, which Peter and Allison developed for us, and adapting it into a cool neon light that it's actually neon and pop out and cut out letters. So it's 3 different things going on, but they did a really good job. Obviously this is not as detailed as that, but they're gonna do great.
That's awesome. Well, good. I'm glad to know it's being done locally. All right, we are quickly running out of time, and I want to make sure we save a few minutes for the lightning round questions at the end. So I'm thinking maybe we'll take turns. Peter goes first, then Stephen, and then Stephen will go first, and then Peter follows for the next one. So first question, Peter, you start this one. Favorite place on earth?
Favorite place on earth?
Mm-hmm.
Grand Isle.
Okay. Stephen?
Holly Beach. No, I'm just joking. Greatest place on earth? I don't know. That's a good question.
You had plenty of time to think of an
I
answer
know.
while Peter was
I know.
talking.
I'm sorry.
It's
It will be.
lightning round.
There's too many.
There will be trapeze, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Steve, trapeze is a great answer.
Yeah, there's
All
too
right.
many to think of.
Stephen, you go first on this one. A movie you can't turn off.
Amelie.
Okay. Peter?
Die Hard, always.
Okay. Now, is it a Christmas movie or not?
Yes, it is a Christmas
Thank you.
movie.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Of course it is. All right, Peter, you go first on this one. TV show to binge watch.
I'll just do the current one. We've been watching Atypical.
Ooh, excellent choice. Stephen?
Seinfeld.
Okay. That's a good answer.
You can really binge that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Stephen, your favorite book?
My favorite book is probably The Accidental City by Powell. It's a history book that's fascinating about colonial Louisiana all the way through the territory. And there's lots of points that you're like laughing so hard. You're like, some things don't change.
Peter, how about you?
I'm not going to even try to sound cool. If you really know a lot about me, I'm not a big reader. And so I'm afraid all my favorite books are probably like from when I was much younger in elementary school.
You could go with Hardy Boys. It's a perfectly acceptable answer.
Sure, Hardy Boys.
All right. How about favorite podcast? I know you listen to those.
My favorite podcast is How Did This Get Made?
Right. Stephen, how about you?
Probably there's an architecture firm called 3040, and they have a cool podcast.
Okay. That's a good one. Stephen, favorite car?
Favorite car? Probably a Tesla.
Nice. Good answer. Peter?
I'm going to say I've owned a Ford Econoline van for most of my life. And I was telling somebody the other day, it's like, I don't think I can ever not have it. I love it so much that it's a really silly and maybe stupid car to be your favorite, but it's like, if I had to live without a car, it'd be that one. Secondary car, well, I don't know. But
That's okay. That's a good answer.
I love it,
That's awesome. Now, is it all tricked out in the back? Like you built it out for camping and traveling and
No.
okay.
No,
so it still looks like a church van.
For the most part. Yeah. You can take the seats out and stuff like that. But yeah. We have camped in it.
It comes in handy when you got to transport these mock-ups of giant totems
Right.
Exactly.
to the council meetings.
And maybe this shows how many friends or lack of friends, but nobody has ever asked me to move anything for them.
Oh, they will now that you've put the word out.
Right. I know.
Yep, it's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm here to help, but no one's asking.
All right, Peter, favorite festival?
Festival. Yeah, I mean, you have to go Festival International or Festivals Acadiana Creole. I don't know.
Or
Black
Jazz Fest,
Pot.
or French Quarter Festival. I mean, there's a
Black
million
Pot.
of them.
Yeah, there's like 367 festivals in this state alone.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I heard international is your first answer. So, Stephen, how about you?
I'll say Acadian Creole.
There you go. Thank you. Now we can have balance.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Stephen, your pettiest pet peeve.
Pettiest pet peeve. Oh man, probably. I mean, as an architect, it's like you're always reading the environment around you. So, like if a light socket or something is like not vertical, like it's slightly tilted, I guess that's one. But I see all those little details, and it's that's probably my pettiest pet peeve. Is sometimes I got to just get over it.
Well, that's a good one.
And live in the world.
Peter?
Probably before having a child, one of my biggest pet peeves was people like not returning the cart at the grocery store. But once you have a child, you realize that it's really hard if you're there by yourself, to put that cart back. And so if it's nothing but parents there by themselves, then I'm okay with the cart. But if you do not have a kid with you that cannot stay in that car by themselves, you should not be leaving the cart right next to your car.
I agree. No, cart return is a big one. All right, Peter, your first favorite musician.
Ooh. These are, I mean,
They're not
musician.
Yeah.
I know.
Just pick one.
All
First
right.
one that pops into your mind.
First,
David Bowie. Yeah.
There you go.
Not good at the lightning round. Yeah.
Stephen, how about you?
I don't know. It's hard. I mean, I have a musician who works for me now, so it's probably Anna Laura Edmondson.
There you go. See, good
You got to
answer.
go with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephen, if you're going to
Britney Spears is a close second.
well, those seem to be diametrically opposed, but I'll allow both answers. Stephen, if you're going to do karaoke, what song do you sing on stage?
Oh man, I don't know.
Probably something by Britney Spears, I'm guessing. What's your favorite?
Yeah, I guess.
Stephen, have you ever done karaoke?
I have, but it was in Latin America and it was in Spanish. It was probably like a Shakira song or something.
Peter, how about you?
Because I've actually never done karaoke.
Really?
Yeah, I have kind of I don't know how I'm friends with Julie Bordelon because it's like her favorite thing in the world. But but if I had to do a song, like the song in my dreams, right?
Right.
It's probably like How Will I Know by Whitney Houston.
Oh, excellent choice. I like the fact that you both went with female singers. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Although right now I think it's that my summer song is probably Peaches. So
All right.
your Peaches in Georgia.
Okay.
That is fantastic. Gentlemen, I cannot thank you both enough for making the time today and talking with us about the Wayfinding Signage Project and everything else. Before we part, tell me what you're most excited about that's coming down the pike next.
Who goes first?
Stephen.
Cayenne Lofts is going to be across the street from.
That's what you're calling it, Cayenne
Yeah,
Lofts?
it's called Cayenne.
Love it.
See, Vermilion on Vermilion Street. We're sticking with the red theme.
Good.
It's going to be like the red block.
I love it.
Everyone will be like, let's go down to that block with all the red buildings.
You'll throw a little bit of yellow in, though, just to stay on brand, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have you could see our yellow columns coming down
Okay, good.
in our office, right?
All right. I love it. Peter, how about you?
Sure. But projects most excited about, Allison is actually more spearheading this, but she's actually starting a podcast.
Awesome.
And it's called Last Place State. And it is a self-help podcast for states that generally fall in last place and trying to understand why we're always ranked last, but then also putting the more human aspect behind those data points to start to figure out, to obviously become more compassionate to those data points, but at the same time, being able to kind of measure, like the intangibles never get measured, you know, the the personalities of people don't get measured. So
that is awesome.
yeah.
I feel like Louisiana's last place on every list, but is she going to occasionally interview people from Arkansas and Mississippi? Is that the plan?
That is the plan, or at least maybe the first season obviously will be about Louisiana. But it's a lot of the same types of issues and problems or lack of this.
And yet
and
they're
like,
such great states, all three.
Right.
Like Arkansas
Exactly.
is like the best kept outdoor activity secret in America. And like Mississippi has just such great food and culture and
Beaches.
writers, like, right? They're writers.
Writers, yes.
Like, it's
music, everything that has come out of Mississippi.
Right. I mean, just the Delta alone is huge.
Right.
Yeah. That is fascinating. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. And to everyone who listened and watched, we appreciate it. Please feel free to tune in next time, subscribe, and continue to be a part of the Razor Branding podcast family. Thanks, y'all.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
Jackie.
right. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, the day is through.